So today we're going to look at the awful data that came out this week about the UK economy. The UK economy collapse has started to happen, and this was the concern when we saw this new government come in, and also when we looked at that awful budget that happened a couple of weeks ago now. We are starting to see the effects in the UK economy, and today I'll show you that data as well. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let's get started. So it's coming up to nearly a month since we had the autumn budget, and the fallout from the budget has continued, and we are starting to see the effects of the awful budget starting to happen into the UK economy. Who would have thought if you do a horrible budget, it would kill the economy? What a surprise, it is starting to happen. And what we also starting to see is the disapproval in the current government. It did not take long for the collapse in the current UK government to start happening. We are starting to see people starting to see the effects of a declining economy and a declining lifestyle in the UK, which is not great to see. And I think the big fallout that is happening from this time frame is that people will promise things. People promised things and thought it was going to happen. People thought that we were going to be able to raise a lot of money. There was this magic money tree that people would be able to access, or the government would be able to access, and it was able to increase funding for the likes of the NHS and education and pay for 20% increases in wages. Unfortunately, people are starting to realise that unfortunately there is no magic money tree, and the money has to come from somewhere, and the places that this money is being taken from, like we've seen in the UK budget, is going to have its knock-on effect on the UK economy, and that is what's starting to happen, and that's what we're starting to see in the latest 4 weeks. Imagine when we're going to be in 6 months' time. It's not great to think about. So first of all, the latest data is not good in the UK. It is starting to point that there is going to be a slowdown in the fourth quarter, which we did not want to see. And we are also seeing increased borrowing at the higher end of forecast in October, which is also something that we do not want to see. This is obviously the effects that people thought that this money was being able to pull back from places. People felt like the previous government, how inadequate they were, thought they were hiding money. And people are now realising actually there was no magic money tree. This money has to come from somewhere. And now we're starting to see that happen right now in the UK. And what we're seeing is the Chancellor that was put in place at the moment to deliver this awesome budget is having its consequences, when the attitude was, okay, we'll just raise money from somewhere, we'll let them sort it out, they'll be able to sort it out, we'll get this money, we'll be okay. That attitude of it's their problem, not ours, is starting to have the knock-on effect. And this is why when you look at these people that are making these big decisions, and they are making these decisions that are going to have awful impact, you've got to question whether or not they even ran the numbers on these businesses and seeing if these businesses were able to absorb some of these impacts from these taxes they were trying to raise. When you have people that are clearly inexperienced in a place of power and causing these concerns, it is worrying to see. And that's what happened. That's what happened. We had a UK government, a UK Chancellor that just went, we need to raise taxes, we're just going to shove it on everyone else and they can deal with it. We're not going to do any actions. We're not going to sort out, okay, where can we pull the extra money from? What we're going to do is we're just going to shove it onto the private sector and they can deal with it. And that's what they did. And now what we're starting to see is all these businesses going, hold on, you've just shoved a big increase on national insurance on us, not just from a percentage wise, but a threshold wise. And you just expect us to somehow pull that from somewhere. We can't do it. You know, we don't have great profit margins. The only way we're going to be able to do this is by increasing prices. And the problem that we have right now, and the first impacts that we started to see this week, is inflation. Inflation is going up to 3.2%, or if you use the CPI data, 2.3%. It is starting to increase. And when we take out energy costs are obviously going up, but even household goods are going up. Household goods are going up, which is not what you want to see. We're starting to see the impact of these price increases where people are going, you know what, we can't afford this. You know, this is what the Chancellor has done. They've gone, we'll throw it on the private sector, we'll leave them to sort it out. And they're not even considered talking to them, asking, okay, how would you raise this money? And now we're starting to see the impact where they're going, well, we have to hike up prices. And we're having to start to see inflation starting to come up again. And that's not what we want to see. You know, last time we had inflation increases in 2022, we could kind of point that to external factors. We could point it to the fact that we had the big coronavirus boom, we had the Russia-Ukraine situation. That was the reason why a lot of inflation went sky high. It was kind of, there was parts that could have been done better, but some parts of that was out of our hands. What we have with this inflation increase that's starting to happen in the UK is this all comes back to caused by the current UK government at the moment. And then what also we're seeing is that we were hoping that inflation was going to stay low, and then we're going to start seeing interest rates start coming down, and that would be better for household incomes. Household incomes that have had their mortgage payments that have been at 2% rates gone up to 5% rates. That's a big impact on the household costs. If you have a mortgage, you will know that that is not just, it sounds like a small number, but we're talking 300, 400, 500, 600 pound extra on your mortgage payments. That's a big cost, and that's why we're seeing a lot of this inflation rising, as people are having to remortgage onto these higher interest rates, and it's going to be an absolute killer for them. And we also look at energy levels. We'll also see the energy, or cost of energy, going up even more. We see another increase in the price cap of energy bills. And we look at Labour once again, and I think this is why people are just getting so fed up, is that we're just seeing so many things go wrong. You know, one of their big promises that when we had the previous government in is like, we're going to handle this better. We're going to cut energy bills. We're going to put windfall tax on them, and we're going to give it back to you. And now we're seeing none of that being delivered. We're once again just seeing more impact on the average household with higher energy costs and also inflation costs and other inflation costs that are being caused right now. And well, at least they're protecting the most vulnerable in our community. Hey, even that's not happening now. I mean, that's just once again having 100,000 pensioners going into poverty because of the winter fuel payments is just irresponsible. The amount of deaths that this will be causing to pensioners over this winter will be absolutely shocking. And this government does have blood on its hands from what we have seen from their reactions in the last kind of couple of weeks. But it even gets a lot worse from there. You know, we're starting to see JD Sports, we covered this one on the YouTube channel this week, they reported earnings and they said October was volatile. What we've seen is consumers spending being pulled back because everyone looked at the budget, they looked at the current government and went, that's not great. And now we're starting to see people kind of pulling back the spending, thinking this isn't great. The confidence is going in the UK economy. And that's what we've seen, is that we've seen companies that are starting to see weaker trading in October. And what we saw from a business activity point of view is that we've seen business activity shrink for the first time in a year. And that's what's happening at the moment. The confidence is being lost. We're starting to see, this is why I think we're seeing a big fall off at the moment, is that people are nervous. You know, businesses are nervous because they're like, you've just thrown these costs, these costs that they've thrown on these businesses, like to increase the NI payments, not just from a threshold, but the amount they pay. The big increase in the national living wage, 3 times inflation on top of what was already a big increase last year. And they've just thrown it on companies. They're not even asked them, they're not even run the numbers. Just gone, hey, it's the easiest cop out ever. It's just throw it on to other companies and go, you deal with it. Private sector, you deal with it. And then now we're starting to see the kickback of that happening. We're starting to have the kickback of the private sector struggling because they have these higher NI rates to pay, lower thresholds as well, the big increase of the wages, and they're going, you've got to find the money from it. And businesses are like, well, the only places that we have to do is, increase the prices. And this is the complete knock-on effect here. This is the knock-on effect that we're starting to see, and then we see inflation going up because companies are having to raise the prices again. It's basic economics. What has happened here is they've done the easy cop-out of, let's just throw it on private companies and let them sort it out. And they've not seen the knock-on effect that this is going to start happening more and more. And unfortunately right now, we're only really a month into this budget fallout. Only a month. We're starting to see the big fallout from it from 4 weeks. It does make me a lot more nervous where potentially the UK economy will be in 3 months, 4 months. All these NI increases aren't even going to come in until April time. So when we actually see a lot of them start to come in, I don't really look forward to seeing what place the UK economy will be in that time frame. Because if this is the fallout after 4 weeks, imagine where we're going to be in 3 or 4 months time. And it's not great. And I don't want to come here and be negative, but when I'm sat here and I can see the big errors that these people that are in power are making, and they can't even see it themselves, it's worrying, guys. And I am worried. And even though there's no productive information I can give you on this video, it's just me having a rant. Because it just frustrates me that we always seem to have, we didn't think it could get any worse in the UK. And Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have just gone, hold my beer. And it just frustrates me because I believe the UK could be a good place for business. But for some reason, we always just seem to have error after error made. And when you think it can't get any worse, it's like having a fire in your garden. You're going, it's getting a bit close to the house. And with this current government, it's like, hold on, let me make it a little bit worse. Get a petrol can, pour petrol from the bonfire in the garden into the house, and now the house is on fire. That is exactly what's kind of gone on here at the moment. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating. And I apologise because this video is just, once again, me having a rant. I made a rant a couple of weeks ago. And I thought, you know what, it can't get any worse from here. And then what I've seen in the last couple of weeks has just made me go, yep, it got worse. And it is depressing for the UK right now. And it's frustrating because, like I said, I believe the UK could be a really good economy. but it just seems like we just make error after error. We have people come in power that just seem to get worse, and they just seem to make even worse decisions than who was in power previously. And it's a bit depressing, isn't it? And I am a little bit worried where we are heading for in the next kind of few months, when you do look at what has happened already in 4 weeks after that budget, and you start thinking about where, you know, some of these actual things are going to start coming in from the budget, how bad it could be in a few months' time. It's not great. It's not great at all anyway. So yeah, sorry for you guys that clicked on this video and had to listen to me rant for 10 minutes, but there we are. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in a bit.